All right, hey, I'm going to jump into this, and I want to start this morning with just a little bit of a pastoral heart. I want you to hear from me. As I think about like Restoration Church, I think about what God is doing right here. I've wanted to venture into this topic for a while because I think when I look at Restoration, I think this is something that has possibly the greatest impact for many of us in this room. And not just many of us in the room, but for our community and for the health of our church. You know, last week, we finished the story of Abraham, and so we spent 15 weeks on the story of Abraham, and it was good. And last week, we looked at his obituary. And one of the things that we said in his obituary was life is not about the what. Life is not about what you accomplish. It's not about what you earn. It's not about what you have. Life is all about who you walk with. And that is such a true and powerful statement for all of us. Life is not about what, it's about who we walk with. In fact, as I think about this, as I've had the chance to do youth ministry for a long time, one of the things I tell teenagers, and maybe you've heard this saying before, but you tell teenagers, show me your friends and I will show you your future, right? How many of us adults would say, yeah, I recognize that to be true? That the people you walk with, they impact you, and pretty soon you begin to look like the people you're walking with. In fact, that quote actually is a paraphrase from something that Solomon wrote. Solomon is the wisest man who ever lived. And Solomon wrote in Proverbs 13:20, he said, walk with the wise to become wise, and a companion of fools will suffer harm. And this is just very basic, simple principle. The people that you surround yourself with will influence you. So, I mean, if you want to have a strong marriage, you want to have a strong faith, you want to do better financially, you want to be physically in shape, who are you surrounding yourself with? Because that matters. Because if you hang out with people who eat Twinkies for a hobby, you're not going to be in shape. That's just not the way that happens, right? In fact, I think about my life, and I think about largely who I am today is greatly impacted and largely shaped by having the right people with the right mindset that pushed me into the right directions. I think about when I became a Christian so many years ago, there was a youth pastor by the name of Parrish Plumley. And Parrish was the first person as a Christian really to begin to influence me and began to see God's hand in my life. Began to teach me what it looks like to serve in the church, how to love my wife and love my kids. A number of years later, I met a guy by the name of Jack Peters. And Jack was, again, this guy who taught me how to lead. He taught me how to teach the scriptures. He taught me better how to love my wife. And I am greatly impacted because of those people and their deposits and friendship with me. And I will say this, the opposite is also true. I was telling this to the teenagers here a couple weeks ago. I had the chance to teach. And I was reminded, like, when I was a teenager, I was a pretty good kid. Like, I didn't get into a lot of trouble. But there was one night, kids, don't listen to this. Okay, you heard this story already, actually. There was one night when I snuck out. And it was dumb. It was dumb. I wasn't a sneaking out kind of kid. But there's this kid named Joey. And Joey had a purple car. It was ugly. But Joey was like, hey, Kevin, it was after curfew, and he's like, let's go to Taco Bell. And I'm like, dude, late. And he's like, come on, Kevin, we got to do it. And so I snuck out the back door. I got into his ugly little purple car. And it was back in the day when, like, you wanted to have the loud muffler. But he can afford a loud muffler, so he just poked a hole in the muffler, so it made a bunch of noise. And so he takes off and wakes my mom up, right? The people you surround yourself with influence the decisions you make. They influence who you become. How many of you have had that story? The people that have put you around have brought you into places you shouldn't have gone. So here's what I want you to do. I want you all, we're going to do something interactive right now. Maybe not interactive. I want you to get a pen out or your phone out. I'm looking at all you. Get it out. Let's see it. Get it out. All right. I'm watching you. All right. I want you to do this. I want you to make a list of your closest friends. Everybody in this room, make a list of your closest friends. Now, I'll tell you what, I'm not talking about your spouse. I'm not talking about your dog. And if you're one of those cat people, that's an enemy. That's not a friend, okay? I'm talking about when the crap hits the fan and you have to call somebody at 2 in the morning. Who do you call? I want you to make this list. I want you to be intentional about this. Think about this. Who are those closest people that you know intimately, that know you intimately, that you can be fully transparent with, that you can share the good, the bad, the ugly, that you would call when the stuff hits a fan at 2 in the morning? How many people are on that list for you? What's interesting is some research I did this week. Sociologists say that in our culture today, we are suffering from a friendship drought. The American Sociological Review said the average American, check this out, the average American has 2 close friends. 25 years ago, we're talking about two decades ago, that number was 6, right? So we've gone from having 6 close friends, people that we could call at any point, down to having 2. And what's even scarier to me is statistically, 25% of Americans, which means 1 out of 4 people in this room, would say, I don't have a single close friend. Do you understand what a tragedy that is? Do you understand how terrible that is? The loneliness and the isolation and how that impacts us? And what's remarkable is this happens where we are struggling with this friendship doubt in a time in our world when we are the most connected we've ever been, right? We are the most connected. So how can we be the most connected ever, yet lonelier than ever as well? Well, I might be bold and say, is that a result of the social media explosion that we are living in? Now, I'm gonna be clear, I'm not against social media. I love watching dog videos just as much as the next person, right? I'm good for that. But can we agree that social media has changed the way that we think about friendship? I mean, like 15 years ago, did anybody ever think about calling all of their friends and being like, yo, bro, you gotta check out what I just had for breakfast. This oatmeal was bomb. Did anybody do that? Nobody thought, I need to call all my friends and show them my oatmeal. Right? Is that just me? Come on now, somebody here. Now, what do? We broadcast our oatmeal for everybody to see. And this phenomenon has occurred where we're no longer concerned about a face-to-face connection. Now we're consumed with our online image and what other people think about us. And so what do? We share our hearts and our thoughts in 140 characters, and then we take that selfie, snap, and we got to get the filter just right. You know, we got to get the lighting just right, and if it's not just right, we'll take another and another. And then we post, and we're like, oh, just a random picture of me. And then we either celebrate or mourn when there are only 5 likes after 5 minutes. And social media gives us this feeling like we are connecting with people. Yet, we're also lonelier than we've ever been. Social media, digital connection, man, it should be a supplement to friendship. It can't replace a face-to-face, genuine friendship. And here we are in this friendship drought. I love this idea, a friendship drought. We're in this friendship drought, and this is not the way that God has designed it to be. See, at the very beginning of the Bible, we studied this last year in the book of earlier this year in the book of Genesis, how God created the heavens and the earth, and then God created Adam. He put him in the garden, and he places him in the garden, and in the middle of that story, remember what God said? Genesis 2:18. God said, it is not good for man to be alone. When we study this, we know this is where God's going to introduce the covenant of marriage. But this idea of man should not be alone, it runs deeper than that. Because as human beings, we were created not for isolation. We were created for relationship. Like, again, context. You gotta, like, this is before sin has entered the world. Sin doesn't come into the world until Genesis chapter 3. That means there's no shame, there's no regret, there's no brokenness. God looked at this perfect world, at this perfect being, and what did he say? He said, this is not good. Not because Adam was sinful, not because the garden was missing anything. Why was it not good? Because Adam was alone. But even in paradise, isolation is not good. In fact, I love this, that the first good in the Bible has nothing to do with morality. We get bent up on morality and, doing these things and doing the right. Like the first not good of the Bible has nothing to do with morality. It has to do with loneliness. And so God creates Eve, and from that moment forward, we have family and companionship and friendship. In fact, this is part of what it means for us to be created in the image of God. In the very beginning of the Bible, we see God in three persons: God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And they exist and they function in this community of perfect love. And we, created in the image of God, we're created to mirror that need for relational community. We were created for relationship. I mean, think about this. Like, if you ever go to camping, we love a good campfire, right? You go to that campfire, you pull one of the coals out. Now, don't do it with your hand. That would be dumb, all right? But you take one of the coals out of the campfire and put it out on its own. What's it going to do? It doesn't die immediately. It just begins to slowly fade. The glow begins to fade. And this is what isolation and loneliness does to our soul. Because we were created to burn brightest in community with others. Long introduction to say we are starting a new series today on friends. We're going to take the next 7 weeks and look at what the Bible has to say about friendship. And we are just going to discover how we can build the kind of friendships that God has designed for us, friendships that will bring life to us, friendships that will deepen our faith, and ultimately friendships that will show the world who Jesus is. And so, Genesis, we saw that God created us, designed us for relationship, even though our modern world has drifted away and tried to change that need. Solomon, we already talked about Solomon. He was the wisest man who ever lived, the son of King David. He saw this same drift in his culture. And he wrote about God's design and our need for relationship. In Ecclesiastes chapter 4, the passage that Drew read for us this morning, Solomon was talking about a man who works hard to gain wealth and power and doesn't satisfy, right? He says, if there's no companion, if there's no friend, if you live a lonely life, all of that stuff is meaningless. It's like chasing the wind. And in response to that, Solomon is going to give us some wisdom on friends. We got 4 points we'll look at. Number 1, we need friends for the climb. Ecclesiastes 4 verse 9, it says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil. See, Solomon starts by saying friendship isn't just emotional. Friendship is very practical, right? Like we live in a culture that's pretty obsessed with independence, right? I mean, we grind alone. We hustle in silence. We tell ourselves we don't need anybody. We're good on our own. And that mindset, it leaves us empty. It leaves us burned out. Solomon is saying, no, we are designed to accomplish more together. That when we put someone with us and say, let's go do this together, we accomplish more. Togetherness multiplies our fruitfulness. You can climb further. You can climb farther. You climb with more joy when you have a partner climbing with you. In fact, I was thinking about this. This past May, our church took a missions trip to the Philippines, and it was wonderful. And I remember I think it was a Wednesday, the longest day that we'd been on, the most stuff to do. And it was probably the temperature was the highest that day. And I remember we came to the end of this point of this day, in the middle of the afternoon, the middle of the heat. The leaders were like, we have a very special job for you. We have a special job for you. They had this property that they're going to build a hospital on. And they're like, we need to prep the property for the hospital. And so we go there, and we find out that this was a dump site. And when we talk about dump, we're talking about like 10, 12, 15 feet of trash just piled up. And we show up, the hottest part of the day, they give us some gloves and some garbage bags, and we're like, all right, go to work. And we're like, this is disgusting, and it's hot. And now, what I remember about this day is I remember David Stark and Corey Lockbeam. We spent that entire day working together. We spent the entire day doing everything. I remember when we're picking up this garbage, and we're picking up stuff, and literally there's maggots the size of $50. Just huge, disgusting things. We took a picture of it. You'd look at it and be like, you zoomed in. No, we didn't. We zoomed out. It was terrible. But what made that so memorable of an experience? It wasn't the work. It was the camaraderie. It was, we're doing this together. Man, I mean, this is why God calls us. We need a friend for the climb, for the toil, for the work. We want someone alongside us. Number 2, we need a friend for the crash. Solomon says in verse 10, if they fall, one can lift up his fellow. Woe to him who is alone when he falls and does not have another to lift him up. I mean, like we can all acknowledge in this room, life is hard. Life is difficult. We go through suffering and hardships and failures and crashes. We deal with death of people we love. We deal with relationships that begin to struggle and crumble. We have health issues. We have all sorts of things that happen to us that can be devastating and crushing. And Solomon says, listen, it doesn't matter how strong you are. We're all going to stumble. We're all going to fall. And what a gift. What a gift that God gives us to have friends who literally become the hands and feet of Jesus to get down and help us, pick us up when we fall down. Friends who will reach down in the middle of our hardship and our suffering to show up when we're at our lowest, to listen, to love, to pray, to offer to carry some of our burdens. Like, do you realize what a gift it is to have friends who don't just show up when things are fun and when things are easy, but who show up when things are hard and costly? How good is it for us to have a friend for the crash? Number 3, Solomon says we need a friend for the cold. Verse 11, he says, if two lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Now, I'm going to be honest, this is a little bit weird, right? Can we go there? A little bit weird? Now, this might surprise you. When I was growing up, I was a Boy Scout. And I remember doing some winter survival training. And in an extreme cold, like this is a thing. Like if you're in the extreme cold, you get together with somebody else, you cuddle and you share your body heat. Now, let me just be clear here. Like unless we are up in the mountains in a snowstorm with no way to get out, the only person I'm cuddling with is Sam, all right? Not that I don't love y'all, but that's the only one I'm going to cuddle and snuggle with. But again, let's just acknowledge there's seasons of life when we grow cold. Seasons of life spiritually where we grow cold. Seasons of life emotionally in our relationships when we grow cold. Seasons where we're not walking with God like we should. We're not prioritizing our family or our health or whatever it happens to be. How good is it for us to have friends who stand with us, who call us back to warmth, to where we should be? You have this picture of two coming together to keep each other warm. And I just have to say, I think this is a picture calling us to more than just screen-to-screen relationships. It can't replace this face-to-face friendship. Because you know what happens? When we're struggling, when we are cold, Man, when it's just a screen to screen, we can hide. We can have a well-crafted response to a text message. We can hide our true emotions. But when you're face to face, you can just begin to see through, oh, you're lying. You're struggling right now. Let's call you back to where we need to be. It's good to have a friend for the cold. And number 4, Solomon says, it's good to have a friend for the conflict. Verse 12, he says, though one might prevail against one who is alone, 2 can withstand him. A threefold cord cannot quickly be broken. Now, I doubt there's many of us in this room that are going to be getting into brawls over the weekend. Maybe there's like Dr. Clark or like 1 or 2 other people that might be doing that sort of thing. Just kidding. Not really, but you know, we're having fun. We might not be getting into brawls very often, but can we acknowledge we have an enemy who is waging war? We have an enemy who wages war against our life, against our soul, against our families. Life is full of battles. Battles with temptation, battles with discouragement, battles with doubt, battles with foolishness. And again, if we're alone, we are so vulnerable. We're so vulnerable. But with another, and we become strong. And like the picture of this, like in ancient warfare, what would happen is you'd go into battle with a partner. And what you and the partner do is you would stand back to back. So that way they can cover your blind side. Like again, the picture of this, like how great is it that God has given us friends who are like, hey, I'm with you. Let's go to battle together. We've got to fight against this. We fight against that. Let's go. Let's do that. Whatever battle you're facing, how great is it to have friends who stand beside you, who cover your backside, who fight with you, who literally run into the battle with you. And I just think about like Solomon giving these 4 pictures of friends, like, can you see how valuable it would be to have a friend in all of these areas? A friend for the climb, a friend for the cold, a friend for the conflict, a friend for the crash. I had to remember what that one was. My brain forgot it. Like here's our summary. Here's what I want you to see from this passage. That friendship is a necessary part of God's design for human flourishing. Friendship is a necessary part for you and I to flourish in the ways that God has created us. I mean, we saw from the very beginning, it's not good for man to be alone. And Solomon reminds us why. This is why it's not good for man to be alone. Because friends will help us to climb higher, to rise stronger, to stay warm and to stand firm. That friendship is not an accident. Friendship is not an optional thing. Friendship is literally God's design for us. And I want you to hear my heart. But like when we were kids, remember how easy it was to make friends as kids? I mean, it was dumb. Like you're swinging on the swings, and you look over, there's another kid swinging, you're like, hey, we're best friends now. We're swinging together, right? It was so easy and carefree. You're just like, yes, let's do this. The older you get, does anybody else find it harder and harder to make friends? Because some of us, we've grown a little calloused, right? We've been burned. We've been hurt. And we're afraid to invite someone else in. We think we're a Lone Ranger. I don't need anybody else. I'm good on my own. Some of us, we just lack self-confidence. We're like, I don't know. Everybody else has got their stuff, and who am I to try and, nobody wants to hear from me. Some of us, we've settled on acquaintances. We have these superficial relationships that we have shared interest, but there's no deep connection. There's no transparency. There's no vulnerability. And some of us are like, I'm so out of it, I don't even know how to start over again. I don't know how to start a friendship. And what happens is we begin to settle. We settle in isolation. We settle on loneliness. And that might work for a little season until life happens. Until the work or the challenge is in front of you becomes difficult. Until we fall and we suffer through some hard stuff. until we grow cold on the places that we should be warm, until we face the battle. And at that point, there's no way that we're going to survive and accomplish all that God called us to on our own, because that's not the way that God designed us. This is why Solomon's picture is so powerful. And I'll be honest, this is what I want for myself in this next season of life. This is what I want for you, that we would have that list of people that we could call, and that list wouldn't be like, I got no one here, or I don't know, maybe. No, my prayer is that we would look and we'd have a list of 4, 5, 6 people deep that we could depend on. Proverbs 17 says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. Like, how great would it be for us to have friends that would love us at all time, friends that would be with us through whatever diversity we face. And I'm not talking about having a friend for a short season. I'm talking about what would it look like for us to have friends that last for decades. Friends that you know their family knows you. Friends where there's this close spiritual connection where you're actually pollinating each other's faith. Where you learn from them and they're learning from you. Where that friendship, you actually are making each other better. That we would have friends who love us enough to tell us we're being wrong and we're stupid and we're dumb. Friends who love us enough to kick us in the backside when we need a kick in the backside. Friends who would show up and celebrate with us in the good times, and friends who would show up and simply cry with us in the hard times. In fact, you might wonder, hey, what do you have a couch up here for? Well, I will say, I wanted to get a fancier couch, a pretty looking couch, but I'm cheap, and this couch happens to be in the youth room. And I will not confirm or deny that I have taken a nap or two on this couch on those long summer and prep days. I have done that. Here's the thing with a couch. Not often do you sit on a couch with a stranger, right? You got to be pretty comfortable with somebody sitting on a couch, right? That's just the way it works. And the other thing with a couch is you can't have 20 people on your couch, right? So here's what, as we talk about this series, here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about who's on your couch. I want you to think about having 4, 5, or 6 places on your couch, not 20 people. You can't have 20 people on your couch. Teenagers, you'd love to have 20 people on your couch. Older people are like, nope, get away from me. I need my space. Yeah, I'm asking you to think about 4, 5, or 6 people on your couch. Now, this is what my prayer is. My prayer is that you would consider over the next couple of weeks, who's on your couch? Who are the people on your couch currently? Who are the people you need on your couch? Who are the people you can depend on? Who are the people that will be with you in the conflict, in the crash, in the cold, and the climb, and the climb, and the climb? That was the other one. I do remember. Maybe you need to ask, do I have the right people on my couch? Because I'll tell you what, there's some of you, and I'll just be honest, some of you, your couch, you've been lounging on your couch like this, right? You're like, this is my couch. I'm good all by myself, right? We're like, there's no room for anybody else because it's just my couch. And my prayer is that you would consider who needs to be on your couch with you. Because, there's all sorts of reasons why we like our couch to ourselves. We've been burned. We forget. We don't think we need it. But if we're going to accomplish all that God's called us to, we need these people on our couch. And my prayer for you is that you consider, God, who do I need to pursue? Because I tell you what, friendship doesn't come easy. Friendship is hard. It requires work. But when we have friends for the climb and for the cold and for the conflict and for the other one, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So if you're one of those people and you're like, man, I don't have 4, 5, or 6 people, man, I'm praying that God would begin to show you who you need to pursue. And maybe for some of you, maybe you're like, I got the wrong people on my couch, right? I know there's some of you, you're like, but my couch people, we've been BFFs forever. Like, we've been together for decades. But if those people are not pushing you to accomplish all that God's called you to be, maybe you need to consider that they don't belong on your couch. Oh, we can be peripheral friends, but they shouldn't be the people that are closest to you. That we need the right people on our couch. And let me say this as well about this idea of a couch. As I think about our church and what I think God can do in us and through us, that this may be the greatest impact on our church. I know some of you are like, I already have my couch figured out. I got my people. If you would make room on your couch for some people coming into this room, if you'd make room in your couch, I think God could totally transform our church and set our church on fire. Because I'll tell you what, there's people that come into this room every week. There's people that are coming into this room hurting and lonely and overwhelmed, and they need a friend. And some of us are just too busy because we haven't made this space. I can't tell you what, but I will tell you God can do some amazing things if we would make some room on our couch and invite some people in. So here's my simple application for us today. Don't settle on isolation, but take steps. Take some intentional steps to build the friendships that God wants for us. Because I know what happens. We start talking about friendship, and many of us in the room, we sit there and we're like, well, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the friendships to happen. I'm waiting for it to happen. And we wait, and we wait, and we look around and we're like, nobody sought me out. I guess I'm not supposed to have any friendships. No, friendship requires work. And I'm telling everyone in this room, I believe God is calling you to take the first step. In fact, I'm going to make this awkward for all y'all. I'm giving you guys some homework. And I'm not talking about homework like, yeah, I hope you do it. No, I'm actually going to ask you guys, and I want you to hold each other accountable. Who are you going to do this to? My homework is simply this. Invite someone out for coffee this week. Invite someone out for lunch. Begin to think through, all right, God, if I'm supposed to build my couch, if I need to pursue some people, some relationships, who is it that you need to reach out to this week and say, hey, let's get together. Let's get coffee. Let's get lunch. Because we all need these people around us. We all need these people around us. And I'm going to make it as awkward as I can. You're going to come see me in the foyer. You're going to want to run the other way because I'm going to ask you who you're going to call this week. Who you're going to invite to connect with. And sure, it might feel awkward. It might be a little bit awkward. But if we're going to have friends for the climb, if we're going to have friends for the fall, friends for the cold, friends for the conflict, if we're going to impact the kingdom of God, won't it be worth it? A little bit of awkwardness? Ralph Waldo Emerson said this: the only way to have a friend is to be one. When we start thinking about our couch, who are you going to pursue this week? Who are you going to reach out to? Who are you going to say, listen, I need you in my life? Let me close with this. Even if we have the best of earthly friends, our friends will fail us at times. People move. People disappoint. We drift away. And I'm so thankful that Jesus shows what perfect friendship looks like. John 15 says, greater love has no man than this, than to lay down his life for his friends. See, Jesus didn't just talk about love. No, he proved his love. He stepped into our loneliness. He bore our shame. And I love this because as he does that, he didn't call us servants. He didn't call us consumers of religious services. He didn't call us projects. He didn't call us just a number. You know what he called us? He called us friends. See, through Jesus, we're not reconciled just to God, but we're reconciled to one another as well. So if you've been walking through a season of loneliness, I want you to hear this truth today. God did not intend you for you to walk in loneliness. He didn't intend for you to walk alone. That friendship is a necessary part of God's design for you and I to flourish. And the best way to step into that design is simply to start walking with the one who never leaves us nor forsakes us. Amen?